It's ubiquitous in every Italian meal. There will be some sort of bread. And that was the case on our last cruise on Norwegian Encounter when we ate at Onda by Scarpetta, their Italian restaurant there. And to begin the meal, we were brought a selection of bread. One of the types of bread that we were brought was an Italian loaf with, inside of it was cheese and salami or Italian meats. We're going to try to recreate that today. So the first thing we're going to need to do is start with making our bread. Bread is a simple thing to make. It usually only has 4 ingredients: flour, salt, yeast, and water. We have a couple of other things here that we're going to add to jizz it up a little bit. So let's get going. Right now, this is about 650, 60 grams of flour. We'll reuse it all. And this is all-purpose flour. I don't think bread flour is, all you're going to get is a little bit more crust, and I don't really need all the gluten to be for this kind of bread. So all-purpose flour, plain flour. We have a couple of teaspoons of salt and a couple of teaspoons of active yeast. Now this is not the fast rising yeast, this is just regular yeast. It's what you can use just a packet. It's packet's like 2 1/4 teaspoons. It's about the same. Then I have 360 grams of water, which is about a cup and a half of water. The water is about 110 Fahrenheit, or 41, 42, 45, something like that. You don't want to get too much hotter than that Celsius. And what we're going to do first, and this is kind of necessary, kind of really not, but we'll go ahead and do it. So we're going to start. So I'm going to go ahead and put this ingredient, this is just a couple of teaspoons of sugar. Sugar will be the food for the yeast to kind of wake it up, because right now it's dormant. I have bulk yeast, so this has been in the freezer. It's not activated, it's not ready to go yet. So we're going to feed it by putting the sugar in there. And then we'll go ahead and add our yeast. And again, just a couple teaspoons, 1 packet. And I'm just going to give it a quick little stir. And that's pretty much it. At this point, you're going to just let it sit there and do its thing. You should see some bubbles start to form, and you'll start to smell sort of a yeasty smell as it starts to wake up. This is olive oil, and for Italian bread is going to have some sort of fat in it. Today we're going to use olive oil. This is a couple of tablespoons of olive oil, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw that in with our liquid at this point, just so we remember to do it and it's out of the way. So pretty much all I am left with now is our flour and our water and the rest of it and the salt. This should sit maybe for 5 minutes or so. To be honest with you, I don't really even think blooming the yeast is really necessary. It's going to wake up enough once you start getting it hydrated and start mixing it with the flour. So I have our mixing bowl here, and I'm just going to go ahead and put our wet liquid in there. I'm going to hold off on putting the salt in there because you can damage the yeast as it's waking up if you add salt directly on it. So we're going to wait. I'm going to add 1 scoop of flour. Now I just called it a scoop. This is a cup, but for this purpose it's just a scoop. So I'm going to put in 1 scoop of flour, and I'm going to just use our silicone whisk or silicone spatula here and just kind of stir this up. All I'm trying to do is kind of get a sludgy thing going, just so it's kind of slightly integrated. I'm not trying to do anything like mix it too much or go ahead and knead it or anything like that. At this point, I'm just trying to get some flour integrated into the water. It's going to be very lumpy and very shaggy. I'm going to put a little more in there. It's like a half a scoop. Again, I'm not really concerned about the exact amount of flour because I don't know what the exact amount of flour will be. The only way you can tell is once you start to get this going and start to work it, you'll notice if the bread, if the proto bread will take any more water or any more flour, and you can kind of tell at a point where you're ready to go ahead and stop. All right, so this is a nice kind of shaggy, sort of loose dough right now. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that and take this, put it aside. It's at this point I can really kind of add the salt at any time. Still going to wait just a second to do that. And let's get our mixer in place. Here's our mixer. We'll go ahead and put this, our mixing bowl, our KitchenAid bowl on the mixer. Let's go ahead and grab our dough hook, which we're going to use. And yeah, some of you are going, why are you using a mixer to do this? You should be doing it by hand. Well, you can do it by hand. I'd rather use a mixer because it's a little bit easier to do, and that's the way I roll. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on to just the 2 setting on the KitchenAid, and I'm going to just start putting in more flour. A scoop at a time. One thing is for sure when you make bread, is you're going to get flour on it. That's just like, I've already given into it, it's going to happen. So what I'm looking for is just the flour to incorporate. I do want to kind of keep track of how much flour is left and how we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 scoops fairly quickly. You do want to kind of knock this down. Now, you can do it with the dough hook running. Just be really careful not to get a digit stuck in there or anything. And all I'm doing is just kind of knocking the flour down into the bottom. You can maybe speed it up a little. See how it's doing. I can tell this is way too wet, so we're going to go ahead and add some more flour. And take another scoop from our 650 or so grams we have, and I'm going to put some of this in here. About that much. Sorry I can't really give you exact measurements because there really isn't one on this, because the conditions, the humidity in your house, all kinds of variables will get in the way of saying, oh, you need exactly this much flour and this much to this much water. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pick this up a little bit. And what I'm seeing, and hopefully the camera can see this too, I'll turn it a little bit more so maybe you can see it, is it's starting to pick most of the flour up off the bottom. There's still flour and water kind of stuck to the wall, which tells me I'm not perfect, but I'm close. So I'm just going to take this really little bit here, not very much in there, and I'm just going to kind of drop some of that in there and see if the dough will start to pick it up. Ideally what you want to have is kind of the bowl to be pretty dry on the sides. So the dough itself has picked up all that sort of moisture and stuck flour onto the sides. So all that flour got picked up. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit for a second and then turn it down. It kind of helps agitate. Okay, I'm liking the way this is looking. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop this. You can't really tell until you feel it. So I'm going to take the bread out of here. I'm going to check for how sticky it is. And I can tell you it's a little sticky, which means we probably need just a smidge more flour. Because you don't want this to really be sticky at all. But it's really, I mean, I'm really close. I'm just going to put, we're talking maybe a tablespoon more of flour in there. That's maybe 2 tablespoons more of flour. That's really all that is. So let's see if we can get that integrated in. There's a lot of senses you use when you do this. I can hear the flour kind of rubbing against the bowl. I can smell it, the yeast working, and you can really feel the bread. And is it sticky? Is it sort of that nice kind of baby's rear end feel to it, which means you're pretty much ready to go. So the flour is being picked up. I'm just going to give it a little whack. Okay, I'm going to say that we have incorporated the flour we're going to incorporate. I'll put that aside. Now we have kneading time. I could pull it out and knead it by hand. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let it in here for, since we probably already have 3-4 minutes into it, I'm going to give it 5. I'm going to give it 6 more minutes of knead time just on this number 2 setting. I think that's about right. So we'll go ahead and set the pot. And we'll let this go for 6 minutes. So editing Kathy will speed this up, and we'll come back to you in about 6 minutes when we're ready to do the next step for this. Okay, so 6 minutes have passed. Let's take a look at how we're doing here. You'll notice I got a container bowl out here that we're going to use to get this out of the way, to let our dough rise. So I'm going to pull this out of our mixer here and just take a feel. Okay. The way I can tell if it's kneaded enough is I can just feel it with my hands, and you will feel not a lot of stickiness. You'll feel some bounce back with it, and I'm just afraid it's one of those things that once you've done it a bunch of times, you kind of know. This is ready to go, so I'm going to just put that in our bowl here. Get this out of the way. Okay, so we have that in our bowl. I'm going to go ahead and put it in a warm place. I have an oven that has a proof setting, so we're going to just use that. I'm going to cover this with some cling foil, some saran wrap, plastic foil. Alright, let's see if I can do this without getting it to stick to itself. Sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. Look at that. Pretty good. Alright. So I'm going to firmly, tightly, I guess, better than firmly, place this on the bowl. Make it so it's a little bit of a drum. And go ahead and put it in my proofing oven, or just in a nice warm place. It doesn't really matter what it is. For about 90 minutes or so, we're going to let this double in size, and then we'll get to the part where we actually stuff the bread with our cheese and meat to make that Italian sort of flavored bread that we had when we were in Onda. All right, see you in about an hour and a half. Bye. All right, 90 minutes have passed. Let's get our dough out of the oven. Okay, so as you can see, our dough has really risen. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Now you may have heard the phrase, punch down the dough after it's risen. We're not going to punch the dough. What you're doing is you're redistributing some of the bubbles. So I'm just using my fingers and kind of pushing down, helping those big bubbles dissipate. I don't want big bubbles, I want little bubbles. And what we can do is we can take our dough out of our bowl, and just kind of take a look at it and give it a feel. I'm going to weigh the dough, and you can't see it, I can. It weighs 938 grams. So I'm going to cut this roughly in half using my little scraper dealio. See how I did. So 938, so half of that is what, 470, 419, 469? I have 435 and 500, so not super good, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to put our smaller one aside and we're just going to use the bigger one for now. Okay, let me get you out of the way. Alright, so here's our dough, and you'll also see some other things. I'm just going to put that right on this parchment paper that I've laid out because I like to work on parchment paper. You'll see why. It helps, it doesn't stick, and it helps when we want to get ready to bake. This will go through another rise once we're done manipulating it, and we'll go from there. You'll also see I have some, this is just assorted Italian cheeses that are shredded in kind of a nice form there, and we're going to use that as part of our stuffing. We're kind of making it like a rolled kind of thing. And we also have some salami, or this is actually salami, so a little wetter, that we'll use as the meat. So first thing we got to do is we need to get our dough in order. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a little flour and flour the surface, flour my fingers, and a little flour on the top. You also see I have a rolling pin. First I'm just going to kind of stretch this out, flip it over. I'm going to try to get this to be about that long and that wide. So we'll roll this out. Try and keep the shape. Another thing with the parchment paper is you can just turn it as opposed to having to fight with the dough. You'll see that this really is like going back on me. I'll push it out and then it wants to come back. That's the gluten. That sort of elastic part of dough that's formed as when you did all that kneading that formed all that gluten. It kind of lined up some of those carbohydrate molecules to make them so they're a little more rubber bandy. Not rubber. Doesn't sound like that's very good to eat, but it is. Okay, so I'm going to leave this roughly like this. I'm going to try to kind of make it sort of even, but it doesn't really matter. So the next part we're going to do is we're going to roll this into what looks more like a loaf. And here's where we're going to do our stuffing. So I'm going to take some of this cheese. I'm going to leave a little room around all the edges. And I'm not trying to add a lot of thickness of cheese, just enough to kind of spread over it. How much am I using? I have no idea how much I'm using. I'm using enough to kind of cover. It's almost like you're making a pizza, but not, not as heavy, not extra cheese pizza, just a regular old lightly cheesed pizza. All right. I'm going to start with the cheese first because I think that's the right thing to do. And then after the cheese goes on, we're We're going to go ahead and take our salami, and I'm going to put some slices. I'm going to say this side's going to be my inside, so I'm going to start there and just kind of put some down. I'm going to space these out. I don't want to have too much of these because this is going to kind of overlap, so you kind of look at how the roll will look, and maybe I'll do three rows, something like that. And again, I'm just kind of guessing at how they made this. I assume this is pretty much it. All right. So that looks good. It looks like we're making a pizza, but now we're going to turn this into the Italian loaf. I'm going to use our parchment paper to kind of help start with that roll. I'm going to tuck this first part in. Try to get it kind of even. I'm going to use our parchment paper to roll some more. Tucking in. I still don't want to do it by hand, so I'm going to use our parchment paper. Might as well use it, it's right there. Oops. That one doesn't want to go. Can we roll? Alright, so now we're getting to the end. So I'm going to push this so the end is up like this. So I have the, let me turn this around so you can see. So I have the end of the roll there. So now I'm going to go ahead and pinch this together, because I don't want this to come apart too much. Pinch the ends, and the reality is the ends we're probably going to sacrifice and not use because it won't look right. So I'm going to kind of pinch them off and then roll that back over. Okay, so that's going to be ready to do our secondary rise on that. So that's ready to go. This next one I'm not going to fill. I'm going to just make more of a traditional loaf out of, so I'll do this a little bit quicker. Get flour, push it out, roll it out. I'm not trying to be honest with you, I'm just making this quick because this will just be bread. If it wants to stick to your roller, encourage it not to. Because remember, this was smaller, so just roll that out a little bit. Use our parchment paper, flip it over, tuck it back in, roll it. This one I can roll with my hands pretty easily. This is going to be just like a baguette. Tuck that in underneath. I don't really have to seal the bottom too much. I'm going to give it a little bit of a seal. I'm going to space these out like this. Again, this is our roll this is significantly heavier. I'm going to pull the parchment like this so it has this separation between them. And I'm going to let this sit. Now, I'm not going to put it back in the oven because I have my oven heating up to 400. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a clean rag, dish towel, I shouldn't call it a rag, and I'm just going to give it a little bit of water on there. Just moisten it a little, not too much. Alright. And I'm just going to cover this like that. The secondary rise is going to be about for 30 minutes or so. Once this is done its secondary rise, and you can kind of tell it'll get poofier and bigger, it's going to be ready to bake, but we are going to do some things like we're going to put an egg wash on it so it's nice and golden brown, and then we'll do some slashes across the dough, which will help the inside cook evenly, and then we'll put her in the oven, and I'll show you how I do that, and we'll let that go, and it will cook till it's about 200 Fahrenheit, 210 in the middle. I'm going to use a thermometer to check, and we'll go from there for doneness. That'll take maybe 25 minutes at 400. We'll see. All right, so this needs to rest for a little while, and we'll come back to you in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. Okay, it's been about, actually I let it go for about 45 minutes. Let's see how we are doing. So you can see that both our loaves have got bigger. Now we're going to do a little bit of an egg wash on these. A little bit of maintenance. I'm going to get a little brush here. I'm going to brush off some of this extra flour that's on there. I don't mind a little, but I don't want big clumps on there. It's not great. This one's fine. Okay, actually a little bit down here will get off. Okay, egg wash. So an egg wash is exactly what it sounds like. It's an egg that we'll put in here, and I'm going to put a little water in there as well just to thin it out. And we'll mix this up. The water helps I'm trying not to spill on stuff. The yolk to integrate with the other parts, the albumin on the egg. Alright, so let's go ahead and egg wash these. Not particularly pedantic about this. I'm just putting some on there. You do want to kind of cover everything so it looks pretty. This will make the bread be golden brown when it cooks. That's fine. And this is our loaf that is just a loaf of bread. And it looks really nice. Definitely secondary rays did some work. Okay, now we're done with that. I don't need that. So how am I going to get these in the oven? Remember we talked about our parchment paper. It helped with, so we could manipulate it into loaves. It's also going to help me getting it in the oven. So I'm going to gently get them both on there. Now, I made one little goof in that the parchment paper is going the long way, and this might be a little long for my oven. So since, yeah, I'm just going to cut some of this off so I don't have to fight it. If you're smart, you'll do it the right way, and you won't have to do that. I'm not that smart. Okay, we're going to go in the oven. Again, the oven is set at 400. This will be for about 25 minutes or so. So here we go. All right. Successfully dismounted in the oven. Now, one thing I didn't tell you about the oven that I did while you weren't looking is I did put a cast iron pan in there with some hot water on it, and it's been in there basically since I turned the oven on. The steam that comes out of there will really help with how the crust finishes. So you'll have a nice crisp crust, a nice crisp crust on your bread, but it won't be like brittle, and that's kind of what we're going after. All right, 25 minutes. I better put the timer on. I didn't do that, did I? We'll be back. Okay, so it's been 25 minutes. We're going to go ahead and get our bread out. I have a couple of racks here. I'm going to let these cool on, so let me fetch them. Okay, so I'm going to be a little careful here because we have a little bit of oil, because you remember we have cheese and salami and stuff in there, so some of that has come out. So before I even move these, I'm going to just try to absorb that up. Okay, let's take this one and we'll just shovel it over there. It's kind of hot, but I'm a professional, so I'm okay. Not really a professional. All right, that one, there, good. All right, so we have our completed bread. This is just a regular loaf. This is our loaf with cheese and salami in it that I am trying to mimic from Kathy and I's last cruise on Onda, on Norwegian Encore at the Onda by Scarpetto Italian restaurant that's there. I need to let these cool off before we break into them. I wish you could smell it here. It smells really good. So let's take about half an hour and we'll just let this all settle down, and then we'll cut into this and see how we do. I know this is going to be fantastic. I can already tell by the look. But we'll take a look at this one. This is kind of the wild card. I don't know what's going to be inside of that. So we'll let it sit for a while and we'll come back. Half an hour. Okay, it has been a while. I can wait no longer. So it's cooled off enough that you never want to cut these right away, because especially with the cheese and the meat in there, you're just going to have it go all over the place. It needs to kind of set up. So let's take a little off the end. Remember, we kind of sacrificed the end. We didn't put anything too close to there, so we'll go in about an inch. And we'll just take a look. And I see meat and cheese in there. So I think this is going to be good. So let's cut off another thinnish slice, because I don't want to be a pig in front of you. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to kind of let you see it there. You can see all that meat and cheese has made its way in to this. The crumb of the bread looks really good. Let's give it a taste test. So a couple things. That's really freaking good. And number two, it tastes exactly. I mean, that is, I do a lot of these recreations of dishes that you have at restaurants on cruise ships. This is dead nuts. This is exactly like it was. So super happy with this. And once again, if you like recipes like this, please go ahead and subscribe to Calm Sea Cooks. Once again, I am Pat. This came from the NCL Encore in Onda by Scarpetta. And we'll see you on the next one, but please remember to also subscribe to our cruise channel, Calm Sea Cruise, where we go to these places and eat this food. All right, have a good one. We'll see you later. Bye.